in your wholesale business, do you really dive deep into a niche and really try to go after specific products? Like maybe, for example, I don't know, basket weaving. I don't know. I'm just throwing out a random example. Or do you kind of go broad, or does it not matter?
Yeah, so I used to get this question a lot, mostly from friends and family who are extraordinarily perplexed about what I do. I don't know, those of you who sell on Amazon, and you probably get the same thing at Thanksgiving. Grandma wants to know what you're doing, and you're like, "Oh, I sell stuff on Amazon." And they're just like, "Oh, great. What do you do?" So when my friends and family asked that question for a long time, my answer was, we sell everything from kids' toys to adult toys, like anything that it's just about the metrics that you're looking for. So that was then. Now, as my business has grown and I'm starting to refine, I am trying to niche down into some very, very hard to work with categories. And that's why I'm doing it, because they are very hard. So like the beauty category is notoriously difficult to get into. The toy category is notoriously difficult to get into. The baby category. And so I'm actually focusing quite a bit on beauty and baby right now. So like I'm positioning my marketing efforts. I have a graphic designer on staff that's helping me kind of develop marketing materials for that. So beauty is, we're going to start adding to our signature pretty soon here, the beauty specialists on Amazon.
Is it smarter to niche wholesale similar to eBay to really learn the market, or just look for the biggest fish possible? So in other words, when you're reaching out to wholesale brands, are you sticking to just like brands that are creating like baby products? Or are you sticking to brands that are only creating like sporting goods products? What are your thoughts on niching down with wholesale?
I mean, I think when applicable, it's a great idea. I mean, it just helps eliminate variables and set you up for success better, because particularly if it's a niche that you know something about or are interested in, so that you are able to have that dialogue with the manufacturer that's natural, not forced. And, you guys have a common ground, so that'll help eliminate some of the nervousness, or, just gaining that experience of talking to a manufacturer. So like, I would advise it if possible. It's certainly not necessary. And you won't find yourself staying there very long, because you'll start getting experience, excited, and understand, how the system and the process works, and you'll start branching out. And at this point for us, we sell in every category we're approved in, and do well in every single category. So there's not any restrictions in terms of where you can go, but where you start, if possible, if there's a common ground or something that you understand or you've got experience with, I feel like that's a leg up, certainly.
Now, would you recommend, when somebody's getting started into wholesale, and I'm actually going through a course right now, when I finally go pull the trigger to get my first deal under my belt, and maybe within the next couple of months, do you recommend that obviously I'm going to reach out to a bunch of different companies like we talked about in the first video, but do you recommend that I try to focus on building up a partnership with one person and trying to get as many products from them wholesale? Or do you recommend, and has your business model been more towards the route of building as many partnerships as possible? Do you see any pros and cons to that?
Well, here's the great part. Is honestly, I feel like you can try your best to go wide, but it's going to be hard enough to get accepted that you're going to be fairly limited in the amount of people that want to work with you initially, and that's it's a blessing and a curse, because it's going to let you work a lot closer with those vendors. But maybe you get accepted by 3 or 4. Here's the thing: when you get accepted by those first few, whatever you told them you were going to do, and however you think you can help them, do it. Document it, show them you did it, and I promise you it will pay off in spades. Most people forget about, a lot of people don't follow through. Then the next batch of people actually follow through, but they don't show them that they followed through, and it becomes less pressed into their minds. But like when you do it and then you show it to them, they love you for it.
Has any brands ever cut you out and went straight to Amazon for themselves? They're like, you know what, Ian, we don't need you. We going directly to Amazon. Peace out. I'm keeping the profits.
Yeah, that has happened to me. And that is kind of my fault. It happened one time, and I have an even better story than that. I had the brand that I just mentioned that was doing $600, that does $600 a month. That's $16.50. They actually cut me off It was actually, I was at the Wholesale Formula Live event.
Okay.
Email from the brand. Hey, listen, we really like you and it's been great, but it's not you, it's us. And we're cutting back on our Amazon sellers, and it's just based on seniority, and you didn't make the cut, right? And I kind of just like accepted, and I was like, oh, I sent back this like really lame email. I was like, oh, well, you know, thank you so much. It's been great. I really appreciate the time. You know, like you've been great to me, you know. And there happened to be at the Wholesale Live event a great presenter talking about how to deliver massive value. And like, you know what? Screw that, you know? And so I sent back an email to them, and the very first line of the email was, the following 2 paragraphs will be an unabashed attempt to prove to you that you're making a mistake by letting us go. And, you know, I have like a open, like how many times the email was viewed or opened. They opened it 56 times in 2 days before they responded. And when they did, it was, we changed our minds, you're in. I learned my lesson about delivering value, and from then on, I have a systematic process for maintaining, working with them. It was the same account. It was the exact same account who had their products busting open, and I worked with them to solve that packaging issue. So you got to play defense.
What do you do if the brand points you to a distributor or wholesaler? Aren't they pointing everyone else to the same distributor, wholesaler, which obviously created prices to the race to the bottom?
Well, that's one of the things. Again, that's why whenever we get suggested to a distributor, it's great to maintain that relationship with the brand owner, regardless of where you're ordering the product. And they can definitely put things in place to block people from buying the products through distribution as well. And we've had that happen before.
Are you finding more companies going direct to Amazon and cutting out the middleman?
No, I mean not at all, really. I know it's there's some brands certainly that do that, and that's awesome, like that they have that. But a lot of these brands, a lot of the brands that we target small to mid-sized manufacturers that honestly, I would imagine in the majority of cases, they're pretty tapped. Like they're pretty tapped on what all they're doing. They're trying to get their brand up and running. They're trying to get their brand and maybe into more retail locations and stuff like that. That's what they're concerned with. They're not trying to sell their products on Amazon. And what they're looking for in a lot of cases is people who understand how to sell on Amazon. Like I know, like, when you start thinking about it from the perspective and, your audience members, they have a skill. Like if you know how to sell on a marketplace, if you know how to sell on Amazon or eBay, that's a real skill. And that's what people look for. I mean, brands are looking for people who understand how to sell their products in the marketplace and make them sell better.
Do you have any advanced tips for dealing with competition? Because one of the issues that I was concerned with, and obviously I don't have any experience with wholesale, so I don't really know, but this is just one of my things, like one of the blocks in my mind is like, why even do wholesale when anybody could? This is just how my mind thinks. Like maybe it's wrong. Can't anyone just come in and just start selling it? Like, isn't there going to be just as much competition as, a thrifted item? So is that true? Yes or no? And if the competition starts to come in, Dan, what can you do to separate yourself from the crowd? Is there anything you can do?
So this is why we gravitated toward the model of wholesale that we do. If you do a model where the more typical model is to deal with a distributor, deal with a just traditional wholesaler,
like ASD. Like everyone who goes to ASD,
like ASD. Okay. Now let's say that me and you are at ASD, separate companies, right? And you go up and place an order. If I go up and place a bigger order, I'm effectively a better customer than you. Those vendors want to move units. I'm going to get a better deal. I'm going to have a better price, and that's what they care about. Now, do competitors come in on those kinds of products? Oh yeah, and some of them will eat your lunch. I mean, that's part of it. But we focus on working direct with the brand. Now, brands don't typically work like that.
Is that the manufacturer? When you say I'm working with the brand, you're working with the manufacturer?
Yeah, we've started making that differentiation because some people were getting confused when we say manufacturer. They sometimes think that the plant where it's actually made
The factory,
right? The factory where it's made is not necessarily, it's the brand, the person that owns the brand. Like, I mean, like you mentioned, Nike. That's stationed in Oregon. That's where we contact. We wouldn't contact the Chinese person or manufacturer putting it together. So that's why we kind of brand owner the person. And a lot of these are niche, smaller things, and they're made in house. So they are brand owner and the actual manufacturing plant are, in the same facility. But it's not always the case. So that's why we use the term brand owner.
So whenever you're dealing with brand owners, they honestly care more about their brand than doing a huge order. Like they realize that their brand is what's going to make them money for years to come. So in that regard, we want to work with. I love being told no. Whenever I call a brand owner and they're like, "Hey man, we're not taking any more Amazon sellers," that gets me excited because I realize that they have high standards for what they expect.
So they don't want to dilute their brand. Is that part of it?
Yes. So in that regard, if you're dealing with the right vendors, then you don't see that happen, to be perfectly honest with you. It just doesn't happen. Now, if you see it with, say, or if you're dealing with vendors that only care about order size, oh yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. Sometimes you win, sometimes you'll lose, and that's what it is.
So have you ever worked with a brand who said no, and there was maybe only a couple sellers? You jump on the listing, there's only a couple sellers, and then either A, you see Amazon walk on in and you're like, whoa, how did they get here? Or B, you start seeing multiple sellers jumping on rapidly. Have you ever been in that situation before, and how did you handle it?
That's part of having a great relationship with your manufacturer. Like when we see that happen, like the first thing we do is pick up the phones, like, hey, you guys realize there's a whole batch of new people selling this product, and a lot of the time they're like, no man, didn't realize it. They'll start sending out the cease and desist and finding out what happened to their supply chain. So that's that's what we want. Now in the instance, let's say that happened and they're like, yeah, we just decided we're going to sell to any Yahoo. Then
and we cut the price and we're done with the product.
Right, like I'll get out of it and never restock it again.
And that's why I think you guys said last show, Dan, you were saying you'll only buy 30 days worth of inventory. And is that to kind of protect yourself against all the different factors that could come your way, right? Obviously, you're building that relationship, so you're assuming it's not, but it's possible, right? So is that why you keep the 30 days of inventory?
Well, it definitely reduces risk, but it also reduces capital outlay. So effectively what I'm saying is I don't have to have a ton of money to get into it if I'm only buying 30-day supplies. But it also has the added benefit of being insulation versus risk.
In the event that the low percent or the low chance that things go south.
And I'm going to paraphrase. Well, Stephen, what's going to stop people from fighting on prices like they are with the books? Aren't the prices just going to get chopped all the way down? And she said it in that voice, and I'm like, I don't have an answer for you. I don't know. So
I have a great answer for you, and it's the reason. When you watch these videos, you'll see the type of products we carry have consistent and steady sales over the course of a long period of time. So, if it's ranked, win between 5,000 and 6,000 sales rank in a category for the, using Keepa or whatever historical data site. There's plenty of them out there, and that it's going to sell. That this product is going to sell. And so what that allows is price stability because people are selling through their inventory. And it just continues to, perpetuate sales. And then another thing too is that, we may be a little better. Dan may be able to work out a little bit more of a deal than perhaps you are when you first contact the manufacturer, but it's a small amount. It's 5% maybe. If we're really lucky, 10%. But it's not enough to where I could just destroy your price and continue to make money. It's not like books can vary. You picked yours up at a Goodwill for 10 cents, and somebody else may have paid, $10 for it, and you're only clearing 15. So they can only come down to about $10, and you've still got plenty of margin. And it sells slower too. So it pays to be lowering the price because the book may sell, if you're lucky, 2 to 3 times a month. In general, of course, I know textbooks are different, but I'm just saying as a concept, ours sell consistently, and then a price variation is pretty much fixed. So people are not going to be just lowering the price and losing money for an extended period of time, because you're talking about losing lots of money on a lot of sales. I mean, we target products in the videos we suggest 90 times a month. So,
And here's the thing. I also want to help Mama Reagan.
Help her out, man.
The
Call her out. Call her out right now. Let her know.
All right, Mama Reagan. So here's why we typically don't see that. Like he said, we look for consistency, but also it has to do a lot with the brands you're working with. And that's the benefit of working brand direct. I mean, I really want to drive it home is how important this is. Most brands understand that they're effectively, that's how they position themselves in the marketplace, right? Like most brands typically want to be perceived as a premium brand. So they have their price set. A lot of the brands we carry have MAP pricing, which means minimum advertised pricing. If you price it below that, you're breaking the rules.
I was reading that because you can't actually tell somebody legally, you can't tell them you can't price it under, but you could set standards with the marketing, right?
Well, you can. Okay, let's say as a manufacturer, if I tell you, hey, Steve, don't sell this below $19.95, and you sell it for $18.95, I can't do anything about that, but I can choose not to sell to you again.
Okay.
So that's one of the tools they have to enforce pricing. Secondly, we like to build that relationship with our manufacturers and explain to them, realistically, you want your product sold at MSRP because it gives your product a better perceived value, that it's actually worth the money, and it also gives your brick and mortars breathing room. Brick and mortars need that margin, so it's going to help you in brick and mortar as well. And when you start developing those type of relationships where you have the comfort levels to talk to them, they really want to work with you, and they're going to talk to their other vendors and get them in line. Like we try to deal with highly restricted brands.
And they wouldn't want their prices of their items chopped down too much because eventually it's going to run into their margins. Like they're not in business. Correct me if I'm wrong, but these brands aren't in business to sell their items directly to the consumer. Do a lot of these brands try to find the wholesalers like you because you guys can move the big product? And if they allow their MSRP to get chopped down too much, there's not going to be that 40% or 50% off discount for the wholesalers. Am I on the right track with that?
Right. I mean, that protects their long-term brand image. And that's how they're able to establish that is whenever they go to a brick and mortar, let's say they go to something like an ASD where they're really wanting to target brick and mortars, and somebody comes up to their booth and it's that product's being sold wholesale for $10 and it's supposed to be $20 online, and somebody looks at it and it's like, hey man, this is like $13 on Amazon. Like, I can't sell this in my store. Like it really hurts their brand to have their product being destroyed online.